All right, everybody. So, the moment you've all been waiting for, we have our final speaker of the night. I am so excited to introduce Michael, and I have three fun facts about Michael. He loves chess, and he calls himself a chess nerd. He pretends not to like selling sunset, but he secretly loves it and celebrity gossip. And he loves a good conspiracy theory. Michael, come on up here and share your fuck up.
Hey, I'm Michael. I'm with the fire department. Too soon? All right. How does this work? So I'm Michael Hyatt, and how many people here started a company? How many here have started a company? How many people failed in a company? How many people are starting it again? Okay. Look, a little bit about me. I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. We have a foundation. I'm married with 3 kids. You know, I became an entrepreneur because I think that that's kind of who I was. And then everything that kind of made me that, when I became an investor, it was really kind of a terrible thing, because what made me a pretty good entrepreneur made me a pretty terrible investor. A lot of my mistakes were around probably making the wrong investments with the wrong things, and understanding what got me here didn't get me there. Um, I just want to make some comments about going on this journey that you're going on. And I just want to acknowledge a few things. This is an extraordinarily difficult journey. And I think that we live in a common world where we talk about it as if everybody should do this. I don't think that's true. I think this is a very, very hard path to build a company. And I think that you kind of have to be the lion or the prey in this situation. I think it's very difficult. It's kind of, people ask me what it's like, and I said, it's kind of like going through a tunnel, looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, but never knowing when that light's going to actually transpire, actually be there. It's extraordinarily difficult. And the sacrifices that you have to make to build a company are actually very deep and very personal. And that's kind of what I want to get in tonight, into a bunch of kind of a few things. A few things about me made me a little different. We immigrated to Canada when I was young, but with my 2 brothers and my parents, and I was a very sick child. I was a critically ill child, and I spent my first 10 years at Sick Kids. And I spent my entire life not going to school in the first 10 years, and just kind of being in and out of hospital and going to some school and learning. And I probably had learning disabilities and this and that. And I kind of idolized these doctors, and I think I wanted to be a doctor. And I was a sick child. And if you were a sick child, it's really weird, because when you're really sick, a part of you becomes an adult, and a part of you is still 5 or 6 years old. So you're out of time and you're out of sync. So you're always fighting. And I found myself always fighting and always being a bit of an oddball. I never really had a clique in school. It never really made sense to me. It was always very difficult. And my path and my journey was very much about very hard things, and very hard things continuing. And I just had to get up and keep going. And I learned a number of things about business. And I thought, well, what can I tell you about a bunch of kind of lessons learned and things that I've made mistakes on, that I really think are important to kind of understand as you're building these businesses, and the journey that you're going on or going to go on. So the first thing I'll tell you, and if you haven't seen Office Space, you kind of have to. It's a classic. It failed when it came out, but it's a real classic. But the idea of hiring brilliant assholes, what I can tell you is that when you meet somebody and you have a feeling about somebody, that is actually the highest form of communication you have. Your feelings actually are the only thing that's likely faster than the speed of light, is how you feel about somebody. And often, like, the test really is, if you don't want to invite them to your barbecue at your home, or you don't want to be stuck at an airport with them for 4 hours, don't hire them. The amount of times over the years that we've hired the brilliant asshole who is really smart and went to this big company and did a lot of really great things, but they're just not a likable person or somebody I want to work with, it just doesn't work. You really have to be very, very critical of this, and very, very secure about this point. It's very, very easy to hire very, very, I would say, talented resumes that actually you're never going to get along with. And it actually does a lot to your culture. All companies have a union. Whether you like it or not, the mistake I made early was that I didn't believe in HR. I literally didn't believe in HR. And I built some like large companies like BlueCat. And I was like, I'd be like, HR, we don't need HR. Come see me if you got a problem. And that was literally what I was like. I was like, just come see me. You got a problem? Come tell me about it. Like, yo, sure, yeah, I'm going to come tell you about it. And I didn't really understand how it really worked. And I got educated by some fantastic HR people that helped me understand that really you can't ignore culture very early on. Actually, culture in companies are everything. And some of my mistakes very early on was not adopting and understanding that rhythm and culture. What is a company? A company is a bunch of great people doing something great together. Really, that's not going to change. And we can talk about AI all you want, but as we sit here, I want you to recognize something as advanced as AI is going to get. We're still 100,000 years old. We still have oxytocin. We still have cortisone. We still have hormones. We're still a 100,000-year-old species. A lot about who we are and a lot of the hand-holding we need and a lot of the culture we developed is going to be very human for a long time. Investors are not your friends. Neither are banks. If you've ever seen Silicon Valley, the TV show? It's a very good show. But here's the thing, and the thing I learned very early, is that investors are really, really important in the journey and can do a lot for your businesses because capital builds business. And I'm an investor now, and I invest in a lot of companies, and I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I built some really big companies that have had some nice failures, all the rest of it. But let me tell you something. When you take money from somebody, you've decided at that moment to sell your company. As soon as you take that check, a lot of people would then, what do? You get on the rooftop and have that party that you had that big raise. We all talk about the raises. You shouldn't actually party when you actually raise money. You should party when you land a big client, land a couple of really talented people. But when you raise money, now you're on the clock. And you need to start understanding how it works. Somebody described it to me one day, and I didn't understand VC, and I didn't understand money until they described it to me. Their job is to put out money. If they don't put out money and circulate that money, they lose their job. And they're betting on you. And if you want to understand how to take money, you should actually turn it around and decide, well, would you invest in your company? Would you invest in his company, her company? What if you're an investor? What criteria would you have? To actually accept money, you actually have to start thinking about being an investor the other way around. To understand something that how these money people work and how the money flows and how the waterfalls work is critical to understanding the lifeblood of what's going on. To understand that they give you money that comes from other people and they work for LPs. And that's the flow of money. And their job is to work for those LPs, not for you. You can talk about all the hugs and kisses and rooftop parties you want, but their job is to return capital. And that's what they're going to do. And only when you become an investor, you're going to start to realize your job is to return capital. Right? So you're either going to be the lion or the prey. Banks are also not your friends. What I heard, something I just want to tell you, a big mistake that I've seen, from the years 2010 to 2020, if you were a CEO, who's a CEO in those years? If you were a CEO and a founder in those 10 years, you got faked out hard because of ZIRP, 0% interest rates. Money was free. You're always going to get your next round. No bank's going to pull our line of debt because they're going to piss off our VC. I'm always going to do an up round, right? Money was free, 0% interest rates. Inflation is never going to happen until it does, until it did. And then you got COVID, and then you got everything else you're in now. So you got to understand that money people, there's a flow of money in the way it works. When I didn't understand that, it got me in a lot of trouble very early on. Now that I understand it, I have better relationships. It's about math. When you start a company, a lot of people will start a company and spend less time on it than picking a shampoo at Shoppers Drug Mart. And you have to understand that you should not start a company you can't justify the math with. A lot of people don't understand their math. If I saw my early failures, I literally didn't understand the math. I didn't understand the difference between gross margin and net margin. I didn't understand how the money flowed. I couldn't make it work on a spreadsheet, but who cares about spreadsheet? I'll make it work somehow. That's not right. Most companies won't work, if they work on a spreadsheet, it won't work in real life. Math actually matters. If you can't make the math work before, it's not just going to suddenly work. Radiohead says, gravity always wins. And it's not just about that. It's about two other things. Generally, when you start a business and you get going, you underestimate what you can do in a long period of time, but overestimate what you're going to do in a short period of time. And typically, what's going to happen is going to cost more. It's going to take longer. Anybody ever renovate a house? Anybody ever do it on time and on budget? Don't be silly, because that's the way it works. It costs more and it takes longer, and that's what you have to plan for. I see a lot of companies burning a lot of cash, and where hope is the strategy. Not a great strategy. Being a CEO is lonely. Now I got 3 little girls. I see movies like Baby Boss. What a fantastic movie. It's Alec Baldwin as the baby. It's so funny. That and what's the pet one? You know when they close the people leave and the pets have a party. But the pet. Secret Life of Pets. Like, oh, those guys know. Smart, right? Secret Life of Pets is good. But at the end of the day, people don't talk about the journey that you have to go on. And I didn't understand this. When I was a CEO at a very young age. I got out of Western. I started a company with my brother and my parents. And I was a CEO because there was no one else to do it. And then we'd build these companies. And I was 26. I was a CEO. I was 22. I was 27. And I would find it a very lonely experience. And it was quite devastating because I would walk up to a picnic table where all my friends from work are, and then it became the cooler. They would all go quiet. And it was really shocking. It was a very lonely experience to be in your 20s, living in Richmond Hill. Don't live in Richmond Hill in your 20s. I mean, it's home of Elvis Stoico, but let me tell you, it's a great place, but when you're 60. So, being a CEO is an extraordinarily lonely and hard path. And being a founder is a hard path. I went through multiple relationships, I never felt that people understood the pain and the difficulty I was going through. It's a very lonely experience, and people often aren't prepared for this. It's quite devastating. A couple other things on a personal note that I just wanted to bring up because we don't have a ton of time is that another kind of big mistake or F-up that I think I did probably more than others is that I would use this kind of concept of what I would call waiting for life. And what I would do is that I would tell myself that when I get here, then I'm going to get married, then I'm going to have kids, as if I was controlling it like I was controlling a budget. Like I could just suggest when I was going to meet somebody and when I was going to have kids and then what those kids were going to look like and how many I was going to have and like that's not the way it works. Darwin don't play that way. And we find ourselves in this, if you're that kind of A-type personality building companies, you find yourself trying to direct it like a show. But at the end of the day, a lot of us end up waiting for life. A lot of people will push things off a very long time thinking that their personal life and building a company have anything to do with each other. They're actually mutually exclusive. They have nothing to do with each other. Lastly, I wanted to kind of summarize up this idea that I have called the Moore disease. And there was this famous author who went to this party once, and he walked in, and somebody said, "Look over there. That's the richest man in the world." And he says, "Well, I've got something that he doesn't." And he says, "Well, what's that?" He says, "Enough." And there's this concept I just want to relay something to you that I had this experience at a very young age. I actually was reasonably successful at a very young age, self-made. I had no money growing up. We started to make a lot of money early in the 90s and the 10s and all this, and we just successfully went up. And what would happen to me is I would climb up this mountain, and then I get to this mountain, I'd go, but when I get to that mountain, then I'm going to be okay. Then I'll get married, I'll have kids, get top of that mountain. I'm like, oh, when I get to that mountain, then, okay, I think it would be good then. And you just keep going. What I found in my neglect of that and my understanding of life is that every mountain you go up, it gets lonelier, and there's less people on the mountain, and it's not particularly that good, and there's really nothing there. Really nothing there. And the last thing I want to convey to you is a little something about my father and the experience of losing my father 2 years ago. My father passed away 2 years ago. He was a brilliant, brilliant man. He was a wonderful father. But I learned something from his passing, which was this. If you have a parent and you have gone through this, it's quite horrible, but they go through something called palliative sometimes if they take some time to die, and they go into these hospitals where they take a week or two to die in palliative at the end. And you go into this floor, and it's 20 beds and 20 people dying on 20 rooms. All the same bed sheets, all the same pillows, all the same air conditioning, all the same water, all the same. All the same. But my dad, on that floor, was extraordinarily wealthy. But do you know how you knew he was wealthy? He was wealthy simply because he had so many visitors, they had to give him his own room. That's what made my father wealthy. My father was wealthy because so many people wanted to show up and wanted to be there. There was plenty of people down this hallway of 20 people dying that no one ever came in those 7 days when I was there. There were people like, no, there was one guy that his wife would phone it in. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. My father was wealthy because people were showing up at the end. And the thing I tell you, and the reason I bring up this personal journey, is that at the end of the day, will you truly be wealthy in this journey? I know we talk about building companies, making money, all the success and all the rest of it, but I just ask you a simple question. What is wealth? And who's going to turn up to one of your rooms, one of your 20 rooms? My father died with his 3 boys over him and his grandkids and everybody else. And I was just looking around the room, and I could see all having this conversation over him. But this is his wealth. And I want to impart upon you is that that's a very, very important thing to think of that end game and think of your life. And don't think about the more thing as so much, because I think we do that a lot on social media, and we do that a lot in this time period. We get addicted to more and what we're seeing and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of impart a very personal tone to what I think is an important journey. So I'll stop there and I'll take some questions. All right. Stuff about the fire department? At the back, yeah.